The day my body spoke louder than words. I remember the exact moment things changed. It wasn't dramatic. No fainting, no ambulances, no headlines. Just a quiet Sunday morning, sunlight leaking through the curtains, and me sitting at the edge of my bed, trying to put on a pair of socks. But something felt off. My fingers didn't quite respond the way they usually did. It was as if my body had slipped into a lower gear overnight, and no one had told me. Now I've had stiff mornings. Before. At my age, creaks and groans are just part of the background noise, but this time felt different. I brushed it off, of course. We all do. Just slept funny, I told myself. Maybe it's the weather. Maybe I need to move around a bit more. But the thing is, our bodies speak. They whisper before they scream. And that day, my body was whispering something I wasn't ready to hear. I went about my morning like I always do. Coffee, oatmeal, newspaper. But halfway through the paper, I realized my heart was thumping in my chest, like it was racing to some invisible finish line. I wasn't nervous, I wasn't scared, but my chest had that tight, prickly feeling you get when something isn't quite right. Still, I told myself, you're just tired. You didn't sleep well, you're fine. We seniors, we get good at rationalizing things. We've been through enough aches, losses, and life changes to develop a kind of quiet endurance. But that endurance can be dangerous, because sometimes we endure symptoms we should be taking seriously. I took a slow walk around the block that day like I usually do, but halfway through I had to stop and catch my breath. That was new. I'm not a marathon runner, but I've never had to lean against a fence just to catch my breath after a short walk. Still, I didn't want to alarm anyone. Didn't want to make a fuss. Didn't want my kids panicking and dragging me to the doctor over nothing. So I said nothing. I went back home, took a nap, ate dinner, watched the evening news. That whole day passed like a whisper. But in hindsight, it was one of the loudest days of my life, because that was the day my body tried to warn me. The day it spoke up, not with pain, but with subtle signals, little nudges, quiet alerts, and I very nearly ignored them all. That night I felt a tightness in my jaw. Strange, right? Not in my chest, my jaw. It felt like I'd been chewing gum all day, even though I hadn't. Again, I brushed it off. Maybe I'm clenching in my sleep, I told myself. But deep down, I think I knew something wasn't right, and yet I didn't call anyone, didn't seek help, didn't Google it. I just kept quiet and waited for it to pass. You know, when you're young, you think danger shows up with flashing lights, alarms, obvious signs. But when you get older, danger sometimes wears a disguise. It shows up as fatigue, dizziness, shortness of breath, a flutter in your chest, a pain in your jaw. And because we're not bleeding or falling over, we tell ourselves we're fine. But the truth is, we're not always fine. And that's a truth I had to face the hard way. The next morning, I woke up feeling drained. Not tired, drained. Like my body had been working all night to keep the lights on. I finally told my daughter. She insisted we go to the doctor. Tests followed, scans, blood work. Long story short, I was on the edge of something serious. The early signs of a heart condition, something that could have escalated quickly if I'd kept ignoring it. That realization shook me, not because I was scared of the condition itself, but because I almost let it slide. I almost let pride, stubbornness, and habit write off the warning signs as just aging. And that's the moment I realized my body had spoken louder than my excuses. It had been trying to get my attention. I just wasn't listening. Now I'm sharing this not to scare you, but to wake you up gently, to remind you that we don't always get flashing red lights. Sometimes we get a flicker, a shadow, a nudge. And if we ignore those little signs, we may not get another chance to catch what's coming. You see, the problem isn't the red flags themselves. The problem is how easily we dismiss them. How often we say, it's probably nothing. But sometimes, that nothing is something big in disguise. If you're watching this and something about what I said feels familiar, don't ignore it. Don't wait until your body has to scream to get your attention. Learn to listen when it whispers. This story, my story, isn't unique. It happens every day, in homes like mine, in people like us. And that's exactly why I'm creating this video series, so that someone out there might recognize their own quiet symptoms and take action before it's too late. I was lucky. I caught mine in time. But not everyone does, and that's what keeps me up some nights. The thought that someone else, right now, is brushing off the same signs I did. You're not weak for asking questions. You're not dramatic for calling. You're doctor. You're not wasting anyone's time by checking in about your health. In fact, you might be saving your life. So let this be your wake-up call. The day my body spoke louder than words, it didn't come with sirens. It came with silence. But it was still speaking, and I'm glad I finally chose to listen. The subtle warnings I thought were just old age. 1,000 words. If someone had asked me 5 years ago what getting older felt like, I probably would have said something like, you creak, you forget names, and you nap a lot more than you used to. We joke about it. We laugh at ourselves. But deep down, I think many of us are a little scared to admit how much we don't know about aging, especially the difference between normal aging and something more serious. Looking back, I can see how many signs were there. Subtle ones, quiet ones, not flashing lights, not a fire alarm, just little changes I chalked up to getting older, like how I started getting winded when climbing stairs. Not all the time, but enough that I began avoiding them. I'd walk a little slower, stop halfway up to check my phone or tie my shoe, little excuses to mask the fact that something didn't feel right. I told myself it was just my age catching up. Everyone slows down eventually, right? Or the occasional dizziness when I stood up. I figured it was dehydration, or low blood sugar, or maybe I just stood up too fast. But that little wobble, the few seconds it took for the room to stop spinning, wasn't always there. It had appeared. And like so many other seniors, I ignored. Then there was the fatigue. Not tiredness, fatigue. A deep, dragging exhaustion that settled in my bones. Some days I'd wake up feeling like I hadn't slept at all. I'd sit at the breakfast table with my coffee staring at the wall, too tired to even turn the radio on. But again, I blamed it on aging. That's just life now, I thought. It's so easy to fall into that trap, believing that every new ache, every change in energy, every skipped heartbeat or fuzzy moment is just part of the aging package. And sure, some of it is. But not all. Some of it is your body sending out signals, red flags disguised as everyday annoyances. I started having more frequent headaches. Nothing earth-shattering, just dull throbs that came and went. I thought it might be the weather or my eyes straining from too much TV. But they weren't going away. I even joked with my neighbor. Maybe it's just the air pressure messing with us old folks. We laughed it off. We always do. My appetite changed. 2. Meals I used to love started tasting bland. Some days I just wasn't hungry at all. And when I did eat, I'd feel full far too quickly. I lost a little weight. Not a lot, but enough for my daughter to comment. "You okay, Dad? You look thinner." I waved her off. Just watching what I eat. That was another thing. I lied to the people who cared about me. Not intentionally. I wasn't trying to deceive anyone. I just didn't want to be a burden. Didn't want to sound like a broken record of complaints. So I kept quiet, smiled through the fatigue, hid the lightheadedness, brushed off the chest pressure, and I carried on. The worst part? I wasn't alone. Every friend I've spoken to, every person in my circle over 65, has done the same thing at some point. We normalize things that shouldn't be normal. We let our pride and fear get in the way of action. One afternoon, I was reading an article online. It was about stroke symptoms. I almost scrolled past it, but something made me pause. It listed early signs: blurred vision, trouble speaking, sudden confusion. And then it mentioned a small detail: weakness or numbness in the limbs, especially on one side. My stomach dropped. Remembered a moment from a few weeks before. I'd been buttering toast and suddenly dropped the knife. My hand just let go. I thought I was just clumsy that day. But reading that article, it made me realize that might have been something more. That was the first time I felt genuinely scared, because I realized how easily I had let these signs slide, how I had trained myself to minimize every symptom, to accept them without question. I had convinced myself that losing strength, energy, and even interest in life was just part of the deal, but it isn't. There's a difference between natural aging and warning signs. Aging is gradual. It's predictable, a slow shift. But when something changes suddenly or starts interfering with your daily life, that's a red flag. When you're forgetting appointments, struggling to follow conversations, or suddenly losing weight without trying, those are signs that deserve attention. We seniors are taught to be tough. We've survived decades of hardship, heartbreak, and healing. But being tough doesn't mean being careless. Ignoring your body's signals isn't strength, it's risk. I used to think I was just getting older, that everything I was feeling was just a part of the process. But I've come to understand something important. Getting older doesn't mean giving up on your health. You still deserve clarity. You still deserve vitality. You still deserve answers. And more importantly, you deserve time. But time only stretches when you protect it. And you protect it by paying attention to those little things that seem harmless, until they're not. Let me tell you something I've learned the hard way. You don't need to wait until you feel terrible to check in with your doctor. You don't have to earn your concern by being on the floor or gasping for air. If something feels off, even a little, talk to someone. You know your body better than anyone else. Trust that instinct. We talk a lot about wisdom with age. And yes, it's true. We've seen things. But the wisest thing I've learned? Don't ignore the small stuff. Sometimes the small stuff is your first and only warning. I look back now at all the signs I brushed off, and I shake my head. If I had treated them like the warnings they were, I might have gotten help sooner. I might have avoided the health scares altogether. But the past is the past. And what matters now is this. You don't have to make the same mistake I did. Start paying attention. Start listening when your body talks, even if it's just a whisper. Don't call it just old age. Call it what it really is, a chance to catch something early and do something about it. What I wish I had known sooner, 1,000 words. You know, they say hindsight is 20/20, and whoever said that must have been in their 60s or 70s when they finally figured it out. Because now, as I look back, I can count at least a dozen things I wish I had known sooner. Not just about aging, but about health, my body, the way it talks to me, the way it asks for help long before it breaks down. I think about that a lot. What I could have done differently if I'd just known what to watch for, what questions to ask, or what not to ignore. And if this video reaches even one person in time, just one, then maybe all the hard lessons I had to learn the long way will be worth something. So here it is, what I wish someone had told me before the warning signs showed up. What I wish I had understood, not just heard. First of all, I wish someone had explained the difference between normal aging and actual health problems. I used to think that slowing down was just part of the process. I thought shortness of breath was a sign I needed to exercise more. I thought feeling tired all the time just came with the gray hairs and wrinkles, but it doesn't. Not always. Yes, we slow down a bit with age. Our recovery times are longer, and sure, we need more rest than we used to. But when everyday tasks start to feel like mountains, when brushing your teeth, climbing the stairs, or carrying a grocery bag leaves you drained, that's not just aging. That's your body waving a red flag, and I wish I'd known that sooner. I also wish I had known how differently symptoms can show up in older adults, especially when it comes to serious conditions like heart disease or stroke. I used to think a heart attack always meant sudden chest pain and collapsing on the floor, but that's not always the case for people our age. For me, the signs were subtle: fatigue, jaw tightness, shortness of breath. No big dramatic moment, just a slow, creeping discomfort. The kind that's easy to ignore. And stroke? I had no idea how mild those early signs could be. A weak grip, a brief slur in speech, a flicker of confusion that clears up quickly. These aren't movie scenes with dramatic music. They're quiet, often private moments. That's the danger. That's why they get missed. I wish someone had told me to write things down, the small changes, the little moments that feel off. You'd be surprised how many clues you can piece together just by keeping a notebook. I started doing that after my health scare. I now jot down when I feel dizzy or forgetful or off balance. I wish I'd started that 10 years earlier. Could have saved me some stress and maybe even caught things sooner. You know what else? I wish I'd taken routine checkups more seriously. There was a stretch of 5 years where I didn't see a doctor unless I absolutely had to. No symptoms, no visit. I thought I was saving time and money. I thought if I wasn't in pain, I didn't need help. That was a mistake, because some of the most dangerous conditions creep in quietly. High blood pressure, prediabetes, early kidney issues. They don't always shout, they whisper, and a simple checkup once or twice a year could have caught them before they became serious. Preventive care, that's a phrase I didn't give enough weight to when I was younger. I treated doctors like firefighters, only called them when something was on fire, but they should really be more like maintenance workers, there to keep everything running before it breaks. Another thing I wish I'd known sooner: your gut feeling matters. If you feel something is wrong, even if tests say otherwise, keep pushing. Ask questions. Get a second opinion. You have every right to speak up. Too many of us were raised to be polite, to not cause trouble, to accept what we're told. But when it comes to your health, your life, your future, you have to advocate for yourself. I also wish I'd known how much of a role mental health plays in all this. I ignored the signs of burnout and mild depression. I told myself, you're just tired, or you're just lonely. But our emotional and physical health are tied together more closely than I ever realized. Stress, grief, isolation, they wear down the body as much as any illness. If I'd talked to someone, opened up, admitted how overwhelmed I felt some days, I might have seen a change, not just emotionally, but physically. I might have caught that my fatigue wasn't just physical exhaustion. It was a warning sign of something deeper, something I was carrying alone. You see, we all carry things. We carry years of responsibility, of parenting, of marriage, of work, of loss. And we get used to carrying them in silence. But silence is dangerous when it comes to health. I wish someone had told me that it's okay to speak up, that it's not weak to say, I don't feel right. And here's a big one. I wish I had listened to my loved ones sooner. My daughter noticed the changes before I did. My friends commented on how quiet I'd become, how tired I looked, but I brushed them off, convinced I knew my body better than anyone. And while that may be true, we do know ourselves better than most. Sometimes the people who love us can see what we don't. Sometimes they're the mirror we need when we're not ready to face our own reflection. If I had just listened, if I had paused and said, maybe you're right, Maybe I should check in with the doctor. Maybe I would have avoided the health scare that finally woke me up. But I can't go back. None of us can. All we can do is move forward with the wisdom we've gained, and that's why I'm sharing this with you, so that maybe, just maybe, you'll hear these words now, before you find yourself sitting in a waiting room, wishing you'd acted earlier. Because when it comes to your health, sooner is always better than later. So what do I wish I had known? Sooner? I wish I had known that my body wasn't betraying me. It was warning me. I wish I had known that asking for help isn't giving up. It's stepping up. And I wish I had known that being proactive isn't paranoid. It's wise. And now, don't wait, don't dismiss, don't delay. When I finally decided to listen, and what changed, 1,000 words, I remember the exact moment I finally decided to listen to my body. It wasn't dramatic. There was no ambulance, no collapse, no sirens. It was a quiet morning, gray skies, the kind that makes everything feel a bit slower. I was sitting at the kitchen table trying to butter my toast, and I just stopped. My hand was shaking, just slightly, and for a second, it didn't feel like mine. I don't know why that moment hit me harder than all the others. Maybe it was the buildup of months, no, years, of little signs, dismissed and ignored. Or maybe it was the look on my wife's face, when she walked in and saw the blankness in my eyes. She didn't say anything right away, just walked over, sat next to me, and placed her hand over mine. "You're not okay," she said. Simple, clear, no judgment. And that was it. The dam broke. Not just emotionally, but in my mindset. I was tired of pretending, tired of brushing things off, tired of being afraid that asking for help meant admitting weakness. So I made an appointment with my doctor. Not for anything specific, just to talk, to check in, to go over everything I'd been feeling. The fatigue, the dizziness, the mood swings, the shortness of breath, the occasional chest pressure. To my surprise, my doctor didn't look at me like I was being dramatic. He listened. He took notes. And for the first time in a long time, I felt heard. Not rushed, not dismissed. We started with some basic tests: blood work, blood pressure, heart rate, oxygen levels. A few days later, I got the results. Turns out my blood pressure was much higher than it should have been. My cholesterol was borderline. Dangerous. My blood sugar levels were creeping toward diabetes, and there were some irregularities in my heart rhythm that warranted a closer look. I'll admit, it was overwhelming to find out that all these small symptoms were connected, that my body had been fighting an uphill battle while I kept telling it to toughen up. But I wasn't angry. I was grateful. Grateful that I caught it in time, that I hadn't waited for something catastrophic, that I still had options. From that point on, everything started to shift. Not all at once and not without struggle, but in small, meaningful steps. The first change? I took my medication seriously. No skipping doses, no excuses. I used to be casual about it. I'll take it after breakfast. Oops, forgot today. I'll just double up tomorrow. But now I set reminders. I keep a pill organizer. Because now I understand what those pills are doing. They're keeping me alive. Second, I started walking again. Slowly at first. Around the block. Then 2 blocks. Then to the park and back. The first few weeks were tough. My legs ached. My breathing was shallow. But I kept at it. And over time, something amazing happened. I started feeling stronger. I could walk farther, breathe easier, and sleep better. Not like a young man again, but like a man who had taken back control of his life. Food was another big change. I didn't do anything extreme. I'm not living off kale and quinoa. But I started paying attention. Less salt, fewer processed snacks, more whole foods. I learned to read labels. I swapped soda for water. I cut back on red meat and tried more fish and vegetables. It wasn't about dieting. It was about fueling my body the way it deserved. But maybe the biggest change wasn't physical. It was mental. I started talking, really talking, to my wife, to my kids, to my doctor, to a therapist. I let go of the idea that I had to be the rock all the time. I realized that asking for help, or even just venting, didn't make me a burden. It made me human. I joined a local senior wellness group, something I never thought I'd do. We meet once a week at the community center. We share stories, check in with each other, walk together. I found out I wasn't the only one who had ignored symptoms. I wasn't the only one who had been afraid, and I definitely wasn't the only one who had wished they'd acted sooner. The emotional impact of finally listening to my body and taking action was profound. I felt lighter, not just physically, but emotionally. It was like I had stopped carrying this invisible weight of denial and fear. Even my relationships improved. My wife told me she felt like she had her husband back. My daughter said I seemed more present. My grandson noticed I could actually play with him longer without needing a break every 5 minutes. That hit me hard. Because before, I was letting my health issues slowly rob me of the life I had built. I was letting them steal time from my family. And by ignoring the signs, I was almost handing over my future without a fight. But once I decided to pay attention, once I decided to act, I took that future back. And don't get me wrong, I still have bad days. There are mornings when I ache, or afternoons when I feel tired. But now, I don't ignore those feelings. I track them. I talk about them. I adjust when I need to. I treat my body like a partner, not an enemy. That shift, from ignoring to listening, from surviving to living, changed everything. So if you're sitting there, watching this, wondering whether that pain in your chest, or that persistent cough, or that nagging fatigue means something, let me tell you, don't wait for the big moment. Don't wait for the crisis. Don't wait for the ER visit. That quiet moment, sitting at your kitchen table, staring at your toast, wondering if it's all in your head, that might be the most important moment of all. That's your body asking you to listen. And trust me, when you finally do, everything starts to change. My advice to every senior, watching this 1,000 words. If you've stuck with me through this entire conversation, I want to say thank you, from one fellow traveler to another. I don't know your name or where you're from, but I know one thing. For sure, if you're here, you care. You care about your health, your future, and the quality of the life you're living right now. So let me speak plainly. No fluff, no sugarcoating. I've been where you are. I've sat in the silence of uncertainty, brushing off warning signs as just getting older. I've made excuses. I've delayed appointments. I've told myself it's nothing, more times than I can count, and it almost cost me everything. So if I could sit across from you, eye to eye, and give you the advice I wish someone had given me when I needed it most, it would go something like this. First, don't wait. I know how easy it is to say, I'll go next week, or it's probably nothing, or I'll just rest a bit. But every day you delay is a day your body could be silently struggling. And the earlier you catch something, whether it's high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, or something else entirely, the better your chances of managing it, treating it, and living well. You wouldn't ignore a leak in your roof or a strange sound in your car. Why treat your body any differently? Second, trust your instincts. You know yourself better than anyone. You know when something feels off, even if it's hard to explain. Maybe it's a shortness of breath you didn't have last year. Maybe it's an ache that won't go away. Maybe it's just a sense that something isn't right. That's your intuition talking. Don't silence it. Don't let fear or pride get in the way. Listen to it. Investigate it. Get the answers you deserve. Third, be honest with yourself and your doctor. Don't downplay your symptoms. Don't shrug things off. When the nurse asks how you're feeling, tell the truth. When the doctor asks if anything has changed, speak up. We grew up in a time when people didn't talk much about their health. Complaining wasn't considered polite, but that mindset can be dangerous. This isn't about complaining, it's about communicating. When you're honest, your doctor can do their job better, and you give yourself the best possible chance at catching problems early. Fourth, prioritize your entire health, body, mind, and spirit. Health isn't just about blood pressure or cholesterol levels. It's about how you feel emotionally. It's about how you're coping with loss, with loneliness, with the changes life throws at us as we get older. I've learned that grief can live in your muscles, that stress can show up as back pain or fatigue, that isolation can be just as harmful as a poor diet. So take care of your emotional and mental health too. Talk to someone. Reconnect with old friends. Join a support group. Start journaling. Even a daily walk while listening to music can lift your spirit more than you know. Fifth, surround yourself with people who support your health, not sabotage it. This one was tough for me. I had to distance myself from a few people who always dismissed my concerns or pushed me to just have another drink or skip the doctor. I know they meant well, but their advice wasn't helping. Find people who encourage you to go to your appointments, who walk with you instead of pushing you to sit still, who check in on your mood, your energy, your well-being. Those are the people who help you live longer and better. Sixth, don't be ashamed to ask for help. Whether it's needing someone to drive you to the clinic or help you organize your medications, asking for help doesn't make you a burden. It makes you human. You spent your whole life helping others, your kids, your spouse, your coworkers, your friends. Let them return the favor now. Let them be part of your healing. Seventh, make health part of your routine, not an emergency response. That means scheduling your checkups before you're in pain. That means taking your meds before you skip doses. That means listening to the whisper before it becomes a scream. You don't need to become a health fanatic. You don't need to run marathons or live off green smoothies. Just make simple, consistent choices that move you in the right direction. Drink more water. Walk more days than not. Eat a little less sugar. Sleep a little more. Small steps, every day. Eighth, and this might be the most important, remember that it's never too late. I don't care if you're 60 or 90. I don't care how long you've ignored the signs or how out of shape you feel. Every breath you take is a fresh opportunity to care for yourself. The body is remarkable. It can recover, heal, adapt. Maybe not completely, but enough to improve your energy, your mood, and your quality of life. I've seen people in their 80s regain strength they hadn't felt in decades, just by walking and stretching. I've seen folks come off medications, regain mobility, reconnect with loved ones, all because they chose to act. You can too. And lastly, I'll say this. You are worth it. You're worth the doctor's visit. You're worth the medication. You're worth the healthy meal, the quiet time, the second opinion, the walk around the block. You've spent your whole life giving to others, raising families, working hard, enduring loss, showing up for others. Now it's time to show up for yourself. Because your health isn't just about you. It's about everyone who loves you. It's about being around for holidays, birthdays, morning coffee, evening phone calls, long walks, short visits, and quiet moments with the people who care about you most. So my advice to every senior watching this, don't wait, don't ignore, don't downplay. Listen to your body, listen to your heart. Take action before it's too late. We only get one body in this life. Treat it like the miracle it is.